All right. Well, welcome everyone to the FCAT Pro presenting creating an authentic connection, LinkedIn and networking workshop. So as you can see, this is being recorded. We just have to quickly, move that. Is it this mouse? Got it. There we go. Okay, perfect. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Albert Fung, and I am a career education manager with the Career and Volunteer Services up here at SFU. And before we start, I just wanted to I wanted to acknowledge the land that I'm standing on right now. SFU respectfully acknowledges that the unceded and stolen traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, Squamish, Musqueam nations, on which SFU Burnaby is located, which is the land that I'm standing on right now. And I acknowledge that I'm an uninvited guest and a settler and also an immigrant to this land. I'm really grateful that I get to learn, play, and also raise my family on this land, which I'm deeply, deeply grateful. I just wanted to, give all of us a little bit of time to think about our connections with the land that, we're standing right now, regardless of where you are on Zoom. So we're going to talk about LinkedIn today. And I kid you not, like when I raised this topic, with students that I work with one-to-one, there's always this little, I guess, perhaps a little bit of intimidation, right? TikTok, Instagram, no problem. As soon as we talked about LinkedIn, it's like, oh my goodness, right? Honestly, I think part of what this about is, it's evolving, evolving nature of technology. Just like any social media platform, it is evolving. And as I'm preparing for this workshop, I realized that some of the content and research that I was looking at is no longer most up to date. So I was doing my research. So in some regard, I wanted to acknowledge that if there's something that I mentioned is like sort of slightly out to date, feel free to correct me, on the Zoom chat or in the Slido that we're going to talk a little bit about. But bottom line is, I want to say that we're all learners, right? We're all in this journey of learning about LinkedIn, because even if we think that we have figured everything out, today, in a few months, there'll be new features, new way of using it. So that's evolving. But I also want to acknowledge that even today, if you're just about to sign up for a new LinkedIn account, it is okay. It's never too late to start because what I look at it is it's a long-term project, right? Once you set it up, you are able to use quite a few things starting today. But in terms of, a lot of students say, well, I only have a bunch of my friends and all my friends are not really working. They're all in school. Who am I going to have on LinkedIn, right? And that is okay. Even if you have one connection, two connections, we all start somewhere, right? But I kind of look at this as a long-term project. So wherever you are, it is okay. It's going to take some time. So that's why I think I will end with the last bullet point is start with baby steps. So if you're going to pick up a thing or two today that you feel like, that will help you, start with that, right? You don't have to be a LinkedIn expert before the end of this. So a quick agenda. So just want to do a little bit of welcome and introduction. The way, it is going to be an hour workshop. And of course, I have lots and lots of content. If you say, hey, I want like a 5-hour LinkedIn workshop, like I think I can talk for 5 hours on it. So I'm glad that nobody asked me to do that because, you might not appreciate that. So what I'm trying to do is, how can I take the most relevant and most relevant information, perhaps to many of us who are just getting started with LinkedIn. I'm sure that many of you who are listening right now, you might already have dabbled in LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, I've heard of this before. So what I'm trying to do here is balance a little bit with what I wanted to present, but also listen from all of you. Again, whether you're in person or you're on Zoom, we'll have a way for you to ask questions. I'm going to introduce that in just a second. So I'm going to split up the content in two 15-minute chunks, part 1 and part 2. But sandwiching that, I'll have an Ask Me Anything session. I just want to say a little disclaimer that just because you ask anything doesn't mean that I have an answer to everything. But I feel like, just having that conversation of what is on your mind? What are you thinking? Like, what questions are you asking? It's actually making this interaction more fruitful. More importantly, just like the event description mentioned, we will, I'll stick around after 2:30 for at least half an hour. So if you have any questions you wanted to raise or want to have, have a personal chat, I'll stick around. We'll figure out, with the folks on Zoom, if you wanted to, if you can turn on your microphone, if you have questions, you can also do that. But, but this workshop officially wraps up at 2:30. Okay, so let's do this. I don't know if you've used this before, but lately it's becoming one of my favorite tools when we're doing workshop, whether it's in person or virtual. It's called Slido. So basically all you have to do is go to slido.com and use the hashtag FCATPro. And the reason why I really love this tool is that, first of all, it's anonymous. So if you have a question and you're like, oh, should I type this in chat? Should I let everybody know? We will be able to, I'll be turning on the Q&A screen on this share screen throughout, So, if there's a Q&A, it will show up here. So during those Ask Me Anything period, we'll go over that. But at the same time, I also have a couple of poll questions just to get everybody to start sort of interacting so we can get your thoughts. And again, you don't need an account to join. You just need the hashtag, or the QR code. If you want to use the QR code on your screen, that will work as well. So if you run into any technical issue, let Anastasia know. But let's actually start with this first question, right? Again, a lot of times when we talked about LinkedIn, we are so quick, to jump into the technical stuff. How do you set up your profile and all that? But I also acknowledge that just like everything with job search, right? Resume, cover letter, interview, there's also this emotional part that we experience. So I want to just take a minute to sort of let everybody sort of anonymously share what emotions have you experienced around networking, and also around using LinkedIn. So I'm going to start the poll. So in your Slido tab, if you already have it open on your phone or on your laptop somewhere, you're able to see this. So, and I can see at least a couple of people typing. So, it's completely anonymous. So feel free to drop a few words. Maybe for some of you, like, oh, I have a lot of questions. Or maybe for some of you, like, oh, yeah, like, it's really intimidated. Thank you for that. Or just like, wow, like, this is challenging, So whatever emotions you feel free to, apathy, overwhelm. So I just want to give folks 15, 20 seconds, and hopefully you can see the words as they come up. It's as you can imagine, it's a word cloud. So the more people share with the same words, they look bigger. So then, there's more than one person who say that. Okay. Yeah. So keep the words coming. Apathy, usually overwhelmed, right? Discouraged. Yeah. And, and again, I don't want to assume I understand what everybody is going through, right? But I can imagine there's sort of this, if you can call it the grouse grind, syndrome, right? Meaning that, it's just a, funny way of saying, whenever you're doing a hike, you look at the mountaintop and you look at where the beginning of the trail, and I'm like, when am I ever going to get there, right? And I just want to say that if you are feeling that and, a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit intimidated, even discouraged, it's part of being a human being, right? I think we all experience that, to one degree or other in different ways. So part of what I'm hoping is that, I just want to acknowledge that if you are feeling that, if you're going through that, it's normal, it's part of the journey. And the fact that you're even tuning in and being part of this conversation, I cannot promise that at the end of the session, you'll be like, whoa, like I feel 100% confident, all problems are solved. But if we can sort of shift the scale just a little bit from completely overwhelmed or usually overwhelmed to a little bit overwhelmed, that's my hope for all of us this afternoon. Yeah, and there's also lost, awkward, right? Feel small, right? Again, I kind of bundle LinkedIn and networking together. I can imagine a lot of these words are also describing networking. Honestly, I know that networking is such a buzzword. I much prefer just connecting with a human being. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But thank you so much for sharing what's on your mind. So Yeah, let's talk about how you get started. And again, I just want to say that throughout the presentation, we already have somebody, oh, this is just the thoughts, but if you have any questions, feel free to drop that in the Q&A, and then we'll see them as we go. Okay. LinkedIn getting started. So I just want to acknowledge that, like at the beginning, there are a lot of new information are being sort of shared almost on a daily, if not weekly basis. I just want to say that I owe a lot of this knowledge that I'm about to share with you through this book. And this book is written by a couple of people who used to work for LinkedIn. And now they are kind of like career educators like me, helping students, especially post-secondary students, to learn more about how to use this tool in career exploration and job search. I wish I get a cut out of this. I do not get commission, but I just want to say that a lot of the ideas and strategies that I'm sharing with you, I owe it to this particular book. And the good thing is it only came out maybe like a month and a half ago. So at least the information is actually quite up to date. So I'm not going to read through everything on this table. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention that at the end of this session, or at the end of the day, you will get a copy of the slides, and you will see that on the slides there are a lot of embedded links. So some of the things I mentioned, don't feel like you have to frantically type it in. You can just click on the link as all embedded on the slides, and you'll get a copy of that. So for this one, and this is the thing, right? These days I still get a lot of questions about, hey, let's do a resume workshop, or I need help with my resume. Not that I don't want to talk about resume, right? But especially even before pandemic, but especially through the pandemic, this whole notion of connecting with people virtually and doing job search virtually and connecting with people virtually has become more and more prevalent, right? Allow me to point out the obvious. So a lot of the shift is is resume and LinkedIn, kind of like your online resume plus, right? So I think, if you look at some of these trends in terms of, shifting the old and the new, right? A really good one is, instead of attending job fairs and info sessions in person, there's, now that, with the new job searches, how do you connect with people? So you're still a needle in the haystack, but, a smaller one, right? And just wanted to highlight a few things, some of these things that are really, really shifting, again, growing up, I always have this notion of job search being, I go to the mall, and I go to every single store and I hand out, a resume each, right? And that, perhaps for some of us is still the case, but this notion of focusing quality over quantity, right? Shifting that sort of from just like, I'll reach out to as many people as I can over a new way of doing job search, which is more focusing on quality. So some of this way, I guess, the fact that you're even here at this workshop, I think you probably have a sense that, it is shifting to be more of a virtual platform as well using LinkedIn. But how do you sort of get started, right? And allow me to sort of take a step back, because sometimes we get lost just thinking about the platform, the technology, the profile, how do you set that up? But the idea that I want to present to you, when it comes to LinkedIn, but also this is a sort of one of those foundational concepts when it comes to resume as well. It's this whole notion of presenting yourself as an ideal candidate, right? You may be in a job search situation, but you could also be in a situation where you are researching for your career exploration. But the idea is that, in terms of, companies, organizations, when they're hiring a person, there's always this ideal candidate in mind, and there's me, right? Or there's you on the other end, right? And through a job posting and perhaps even, information that you can gather from people in the organization, this ideal, so-called ideal candidate, and I put that in quotation, has certain set of skills, certain set of experience, personality, they might have some certification and certain sets of values, right? And if you think about you as a person, you also have a lot of different skills, a lot of different experience, and so on and so forth, right? So part of this process, whether it is a resume or on LinkedIn, is how are you able to identify what you have that align with what you want to do? Like, again, I'm not just talking about a particular job posting, you know, but it could be, for example, if you have an ideal role, like I really want to be, you know, in this particular role. Well, what are the skill set and experience and personality and values that align with this particular role, right? So it's important to sort of start with, you know, even before going into LinkedIn, thinking about this mindset of, you know, not necessarily just listing everything that you have, but identifying what are the ones that is as most associated with the role that you're interested, the roles that you're looking for, right? So here's another interesting thing, right? When we talk about, you know, recruiting using LinkedIn, you know, on the other end, right? This is where we talk about employers or recruiters. What are some of the things that shows up when they search for, you know, certain type of candidates on their LinkedIn, right? And these are a few things that, you know, that needs to keep in mind. Job titles, right? If you have done, you know, certain roles before, or if you talk about the fact that you're interested in working in those job titles, that's going to come up, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about when we talk about profile. Connections to others in the field, right? Are you able to connect to people that recruiters might know, even if it's sort of second or third degree? Professional photo, right? You know, that's another thing that, you know, a traditional resume doesn't have, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But bottom line is keywords, right? I think, you know, if all these sort of things about LinkedIn algorithm seems a little bit overwhelming or too technical, right? You know, I know it may not be technical for many of you, but the idea is just comes down to whether the words that are on your profile align with the keywords that a recruiter is perhaps looking for, right? So knowing the idea of, you know, can we identify the keywords of a particular field that you're interested in? Keywords of particular, you know, skills and experience, and are you able to sort of align your profile with certain keywords in a particular field? So again, you know, keeping sort of, you know, keeping in mind that maybe many of us are just, you know, starting, you know, I figured out, well, why don't we actually talk a little bit about a profile checklist. Again, you know, if you already have started your LinkedIn profile, that's excellent. So this could be a little bit of a reminder as we go through different sections. But I want to start with this thought is every profile has a beginning, meaning that, you know, wherever you are, you might be like, you know, like, again, you know, I kid you not, I was actually going to show my profile, and of course, you know, like I need to show that, but part of that feeling for me is like, wow, this is not really good. Oh, I should have updated that. But, you know, but then I caught myself thinking, well, you know, I guess I'm just like everyone, right? Nobody's profile is perfect. We all start somewhere. So again, this is not so much about having a perfect profile because it is, you know, evolving as we go. So it doesn't matter where you are. There's no judgment. It is okay. You know, we are all, you know, we all start somewhere. Okay. So, you know, before we jump into the photo, I wanted to share with you one, you know, a person that I know, she might or may not know that I'm using her profile, but I know. Hang on a second. Just lost the share screen there. Let me just reestablish that. There we go. All right, so there we go. It does something. Oh, I see. What I did. Second here. So what I wanted to show you is a profile of somebody that I know. And there we go, that should work. Okay. How are we doing with the sound and everything? Yes, okay. So this is, you know, this is a recent-ish grad, recent-ish. Her name is Shaina. And again, by no means that, you know, this is a perfect profile, but I appreciate that because I think she can relate to a lot of the students I work with, sort of recent graduate, and you know, and and I just wanted to sort of use her profile as a way. I'm just going to quickly sort of scroll through it, and I'm going to walk you through one by one, because again, instead of using a fake profile, I think it's you know, I think it's good to actually use a person that, you know, like a real person, a real profile that's publicly available. So yeah, so let's start with this notion of, I'm going to be flipping back and forth, and I apologize if it's making anyone dizzy. So I'm trying to cram everything in one screen. So let's look at a profile photo, right? Again, without saying it out loud, what are your first impression looking at Shina's profile, right? What does the picture, what impression does it give off?
It definitely looks like a professional photo.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look like she just took it on her phone or something.
Exactly. So it's not like a selfie that me, standing, in front of, on the mountaintop or something like that. But hey, in some cases it might be relevant too, right? So a couple of things to, based on, some of the things, stuff that I've learned from people who write about LinkedIn, is that, people love faces, right? So not your whole body, not, because again, you just get this tiny little circle, so how do you crop yours around your head and shoulders so it focuses on your face? People love smiles, so make sure that you have a genuine sort of casual smile. It doesn't have to be a really exaggerated one. And then people love people like themselves, right? I think part of this is, I think we're talking about specifically about dress code, right? Again, for some sector, it might be more formal, like imagine like a banking sector or finance sector, suit and tie, the more corporate look. But some other depending on some other, industry and sectors, maybe a little bit more casual, maybe even more expressive, if you're in contemporary arts, right? So something that, that people in the industry would match people folks in that industry. And there's also this little thing called photo background that is, that is popular lately. So again, choose the photo that speaks to your sort of functional and geographic interests, sort of related to what you're looking for, and just adds a little bit of a visual element to it, right? So as we can see, Shina's, has beautiful mountaintop, and I think that works with her personality very well if you know her. So. And then the next thing is headline, right? Possibly the most important part of your profile. Not only is the first thing that people read, but it is also something that the LinkedIn algorithm prioritize. Meaning that any keywords that you put in terms of job titles that you're interested or areas of challenges that you want to take on, the algorithm picks that up, or prioritize over that. So in this case, just to illustrate that, right, Shina, put in not necessarily just job titles, right, but the kind of professional that she wants to portray, like creative problem solver, empathic, relationship manager. But she also listed some of her roles, for example, working at Amazon. And so this is something that, to think about in terms of putting, what are the job titles that you're interested in? And again, if they're sort of second most important, my personal opinion is sort of the about section, right? Because the headline, you can only fit so many characters in, it is relatively limited. But in the about section, even though it's, still limited, but it gives you room to do a few more sentences, right? So in the about section, this is actually a great area for you to put in, start with a couple of sentences of who you are and what you're looking for, including some accomplishment and experience, and some specialties, right? This is sort of the keywords of skills that you want to include, and also an email address. So let's take a quick look at Shina's as well. So the about section is a little bit lower, but what I really like, it's just so beautifully written in regard, like, again, I'm not gonna be able to read it out loud, but next time when you're browsing on LinkedIn and checking out other folks' profiles, take a look at their about section, right? Talking about, this person talks about what is it that they want in life, or what are the type of work that they've done, some accomplishment, and also some specialties in terms of their skills. So this is an about section that, that definitely adds a little bit of personality, right? Because again, we talked about a lot of the content, even in your LinkedIn profile, is sort of hard and dry, like accomplishments, skills. But this about section, this shows a little bit about your personality and how you see yourself as a person in terms of what you want to do and what you're passionate about. So I do acknowledge that, like, as you can see, like, I'm really flipping through, the slides quite quickly. Again, I wish I have a couple hours to just walk through each section. So again, I just wanted to highlight maybe some of the things that you want to think about through each section. By no means, like, this is sort of exhaustive and, that because there's so much that we can talk about, but I just want to quickly highlight that. So think about your experience section, right? This one is probably easier, comparing to other ones. If you already have a resume, if you have an experience section, it is easy for you to just sort of copy and paste and move things there, right? Again, whenever for those of us who are starting your LinkedIn profile today or in the near future, don't feel like you have to start with everything, right? Just start with copy and pasting something that you already have, start with baby steps. But keep in mind in the experience section is not just talking about what you've done, but what impact does it have, right? So let's see. So for example, this is a really good one. Like, this person highlighted, Shaina highlighted how many people she was working with. And even maybe as, sort of as a research assistant, she was talking about some of the, skills that she used in terms of analyzing data, right? So think about not just what you have done, but the accomplishment. But this is another really good point I wanted to make sure that you pay attention, is to add media, right? Because I know that many of you, especially within FCAT, you might already have a portfolio, right? Maybe a portfolio of your design, portfolio of your work, and maybe even like, you might even have a website that houses some videos even, right? So what is really cool about LinkedIn lately is that you can also add media. So, and I'm always about, better to show than tell, whether you have a portfolio, and this is a good way for you to even add pictures, add photos or add link or even embed a video, to your particular experience section so that your work can be showcased through that experience section. So again, if there's any sort of visual things that you can add, it adds so much more to your profile. Education is pretty straightforward, but it's more than just the name of the school or the program, but any relevant co-curricular or extracurricular activities. So for example, I believe Shaina, let's see, she included her time in terms of different activities or different sort of volunteering that she involved. She's especially highlighted semester in dialogue. That's also a good way of highlighting a particular program, even though it's within that degree. And interesting enough, she was also featured in one of the articles and she included that in there, right? So again, it's not just throwing in anything you can, like that's part of it as well. But how are those relevant? The keyword is relevant, right? How is it relevant to the work that you're looking for, the work that you're interested in, and kind of include that in your education journey there. So skills. This is another interesting one because most people just go with whatever random skills their friends have recommended for them. This is a really interesting one because if you scroll to the bottom, allow me to just show you what I mean by that. I also have a very long list of skills. It'll just run right past it. Yeah, so you can have as many skills as you want. Apparently, according to some of the research that has been done, it doesn't really actually, the algorithm doesn't necessarily search through the skill section. But what is interesting is that even though it's not the most important, but you still don't want to ignore it. So identifying sort of relevant areas, again, some of the keywords. But here's the thing, right? Yeah, it's about the endorsement. Like, do you need your friends to just endorse all the skills that you have? I don't think in these cases recruiters care much about them because you can just everyone, even though somebody who might not know how you do in a particular skill, to endorse you as great. So this is where the next section comes in, is the recommendations. While skills endorsement is not as effective, recommendations do matter. Because it's a more authentic approach in terms of validating your skills. So in some ways, it's almost like a mini reference letter. Like, if you wanted to compare that to more of the the old school traditional approach. But in this case, it's also the quality, not quantity, right? So finding the right person, maybe it's a professor, maybe it's a manager that have seen how good your work does, even though it, and it's not meant to be long. That's why I say like mini reference letter, even if 2-3 sentences, right? It goes a long way, right? So, this is probably a good time to pause for a Ask Me Anything. So I'm just gonna go back to see if do we have any questions. So, and folks who are on Zoom, if you wanted to include your questions, you feel free to use Slido as well instead of the Zoom chat. But if there's anything comes up in the chat, I'm sure Anastasia will also let me know. Yeah, I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts, any questions, comments. Again, if you actually want to unmute and say it out loud, I believe you can unmute that, and I think we can hear you in this room as well. So if you want, you can do that. But here is Slido if you want to. Okay. Anyone in the audience, any questions? Yes, please.
So how would we be able to access the PowerPoint? Is it going to be like emailed to us, or are you going to give us a link at the end of the presentation?
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I didn't describe that quite clearly. So assuming that, everybody who is here have registered through Eventbrite, so we have your email address on file. So I'm gonna, once I'm done, I'm gonna turn that PowerPoint into a PDF file, send that to Anastasia, and she's gonna pass it along to you. Yeah, and to me, this is very important because I'm gonna actually wrap up this workshop with a whole bunch of resources, right? Like I was saying, I can talk about this for 5-6 hours, but instead of that, I wanted to point to a lot of free resources that you can get to. So yeah, so they're all with embedded links. So hopefully you'll get that. Okay. So let's look at some of the questions here. So the first one, thank you. Just keep them coming. We'll keep answering them until there are no more. So first question, what if you don't remember results from past jobs or there weren't any concrete ones? That's actually a very good one. Yeah, what if you don't remember? I wonder if I have a better answer, like try to remember, because bottom line is, this is another thing too. It might not even be somebody who like you remember or you have, you don't have good memory. In the past, when I work with students to talk about accomplishment at work, it's not even because they don't remember, but because they do the job so well. It's like, well, it's just kind of taking it for granted. So sometimes I even ask them, okay, I get it that this is a pretty simple job, and and what you do every day seems mundane, right? What if somebody who is brand new doesn't have much training and do the work that you are trying to do on the first day? What could go wrong, right? And I remember sometimes when I ask this person the question, they'll be like, oh yeah, you could easily miss the deadline, or you could easily get it all mixed up, and if it's disorganized, then there will be some problem. Then I'm like, okay, so I guess the way that you do it is accuracy is important, being organized is important, sticking to timeline is important, right? So that's, in some ways also results. So results, it could be numbers, it could be impact, but it could also be, a way to quantify sort of how good it is or what purpose it is trying to achieve. So hopefully that sort of answered that question. Let's look at the next one. How would you encourage LinkedIn for someone who is worried about online privacy? Doesn't like to have a lot of their info online. Oh, this is one of my favorite questions. It is because I'm a private person. As much as I have a LinkedIn profile, I'm going to be completely transparent. I have Instagram, but I never post. I just use it to follow others because privacy is my concern, and I have 2 young children, so I can relate to that. So what I would say is a couple of things, right? I think there's always this debate of, like, should I just hide my profile away from somebody that I don't know, right? But at the same time, the counter argument of that is, well, the reason why you want to be on LinkedIn is that you want people to find you, like people who don't know you to find you. But I guess what I wanted to look at, the way I want to look at it is, I guess your degree of comfort about how much you reveal is up to you, right? So if there are things like, I really don't want to talk about the fact that I work for this company, then it's okay to leave it out, right? Because again, bottom line is, you have control over what you put on and what you leave out. So, and again, this is such a big topic. I acknowledge that in terms of privacy, but I also want to acknowledge that, like, here's another, maybe this is also a very good one. I know that when I work with folks who are, probably have 20 years or 30 years of work experience, maybe they're a mature student or maybe they're quite a bit into their career. They're like, okay, maybe they acknowledge that, ageism exists, right? And so for them, leaving out the year that they graduate from their undergrad degree is important, right? Because they're like, oh, I don't want people to do the math to know that I am 55 or I'm 45. I'm turning 45 next year. So maybe you can leave the year out. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, depending on what your comfort level, leave some of the details out that you don't feel comfortable to put in, or even edit it out, like, oh, I put it there. I'm like, oh, now that I see it, I really don't want that. You can always take that away. So again, feel free to have a follow-up question. I don't want to assume I completely understand where you're coming from, but this is actually an amazing question. Like, see, this is why we do this Ask Me Anything thing, because I thought about many things, but this is not something that I thought about in terms of content. So really appreciate that. Do you have any recommendations for multi-language profiles? Wow, I love this question. Because again, LinkedIn is a global platform, right? And, and I acknowledge that, in this Western world, we sometimes, have bias that, oh yeah, like English is the only language. But really, I think this is a great question because it's about your audience, right? For example, if you're able to speak multiple language, if you're looking for opportunities beyond the North American or the English speaking context, right? Again, just to give you an example, I have seen friends and connections where they have not only have their Western name, but the name, but the name, like, for example, I was born in Hong Kong, I'm from Hong Kong, so they put in their, the Hong Kong name or the Chinese name or Cantonese name. So that's actually, an advantage. So I think bottom line is keep your audience in mind. If you think that you can put in content or language that really connect with your, with your audience, right? And then sometimes it might not even be language. I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I was working with students, and this student is an international student, and she's really into sort of life performance, type of situation. Life performance kind of sector, and like backstage and stuff like that. And she was sharing with me that, as she is, exposing to this field in Vancouver, she realized the roles that people have in backstage is, they call it something different than what she's accustomed to, right? So again, maybe, because you have that global experience, you're able to say, hey, in this context, this is what is being referred to, but it's another context. It actually has a different name, right? So acknowledge that, put that in. It's all about the audience that you want to connect to, so it makes sense to them. Okay, wow, lots of questions coming. Let me just keep scrolling. Oh, did I miss this one? Okay. What would be the suggested way to ask people for recommendations? Is there an unset timer after which it might not be okay to get in touch with them? Oh, this is a very good question. Very, very good question. I think when it comes to reference, not just writing recommendation, but, down the road in job search situation, you might need references. I think that's why I think it's important that you keep in touch. But I also get that maybe it's a professor or a manager that you haven't talked in about a couple of years. So I think the key thing is, it depending on the relationship, right? Like, again, I don't have a quick answer to that. For some, you might not, and we're in and we're still going through a pandemic, for crying out loud. So I think that factor, might be make it a little bit easier to reach out and say, hey, we haven't chatted for so long, but I am just about to graduate and I really want some recommendations because I've done some really good work with you. Can you write a couple of things about me in this particular area, right? So I guess I want to reiterate the fact that quality is better than quantity. One is better than none, but it's not about having like 50 recommendations, right? So again, get it however you can get them. And we all start somewhere, right? So I just wanted to say that I don't think there's like a unset timer, so to speak. Again, the worst that the person can do is just ignore you and not respond to your message. But hey, if they say yes, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Then you have a recommendation coming, right? So again, not the perfect answer, but It doesn't hurt to try. How would you tailor a profile when applied to different postings? That is actually a very good one, because again, for many of us, we might have several streams, right? So in this case, I would say a couple of things. Again, might not be the perfect answer, but number one is that one way of looking at it is if those fields or those streams are or different postings are close enough, right? Let's say, for example, maybe you are in the School of Interactive Arts and Technology, right? You're thinking about, maybe I want to do user experience, but I also want to dabble in sort of animation, right? So it's sort of like, okay, it's close enough, right? But I can also imagine for many people, it will be like, I wanted to work in the environmental sector, but I'm also interested in the food sector, like a hospitality sector, like very, very different. So in that case, you can also consider, like, if this is what you want to focus on right now, edit your profile through that lens. But maybe after a while, like, okay, I want to shift my focus, you can go back and edit it. So the good thing about LinkedIn is you can always go back to edit it. If at some point, like, I want to shift my focus, you can go in and sort of fine tune some of those things. So yeah, again, this is a really good question as well, because unlike resume, you can have different sort of versions of resume. In LinkedIn, you just get one version. So I guess my best educated guess is just keep tweaking with that. What are the best ways to share your profile with others? Do algorithms help with this? So I think, yes, the algorithm help with this. So one of the things I think I'm interpreting the question in a couple of different ways. One way is that, like, okay, if I have a profile, I need to let people know. So assuming that, if you still have a traditional resume, put the URL in your resume so that people know that you have a LinkedIn. But I think this question can also be interpreted as, how can you be found by others as they're searching, perhaps, in a recruitment situation? So it goes back to a lot of the, situation with keywords. So which I wanted to, talk a little bit more about. But the idea is that if you look at some job postings, and if you've seen enough job postings in that field, you kind of get the idea that, oh yeah, like this particular skill or this particular task keep coming back over and over, right? So let me make sure that I embedded this in my skills or in my experience so that there is an algorithm match. Sorry, not algorithm match, but keyword match that the algorithm will pick up. Okay, so, oh my goodness, these are really, really good questions. So I'm gonna, I still want to answer them as I go, but I still want to go back to part 2. Let me see how we're doing here. That is amazing. So I'll get back to this in a second, but I still wanted to touch on a few things about networking. So, networking using LinkedIn. Again, I just want to start off by saying that, there's so much about networking that I want to talk about. There's so much about actually connecting with the human being in an authentic manner, because I know that sometimes this networking sometimes could sound very much like, oh, like I have a purpose that I'm getting something out of you, that kind of connotation there. So I just want to say that, like, I wish I had more time to talk about it in a more authentic sort of approach. So I just want to, keep in mind that, I think the way that I want to approach it is, depending on your personality, right? Some of us might be super, super comfortable. For the rest of us, this could be like worse than going to the dentist and have your wisdom teeth pull out, right? Or public speaking, right? Which is also another thing. I guess what I'm trying to say is, do what you can, given your personality and capacity, right? It's not about connecting with 100 people, 500 people, right? It's about the quality of that connection. So I just want to start with that. Second thing is, when it comes to networking, LinkedIn is just one of those tools, right? Can you use Instagram for networking? Absolutely. Can you use TikTok to connect with someone? For sure, right? Even the good old-fashioned Facebook, right? So I just want to put things that into context. So I know that I'm talking in a very sort of abstract, so I wanted to share with you a student story. So Hadil, she gave us permission to talk about her story, in different workshops. So she is a recent political science grad, and she worked with one of my colleagues, during, just shortly after she finished all her courses, and they talked about LinkedIn, and this is her story. So I'm going to play this, And please let us know if there's any volume or audio issue. So let's give it a try. Okay, no, hang on. Oops. Let's see. Just give me a second here. Oops. Let's try that again.
I made sure that I utilized LinkedIn. So I know a lot of times throughout the years, people were always like, just use LinkedIn, like LinkedIn's meant for that. And I'd be like, no, like I just rather not, like I'll look at job postings, like I don't have to deal with that. But I reached a point where I was like, okay, like I know that I'm interested in policy. I know I'm interested in international development. So let me go on LinkedIn and look for some people that I can gain inspiration from, that I can learn from. So I started off by just on LinkedIn, I went on to like Global Affairs Canada, and then I clicked onto like the people to like look at certain people that worked there. And I just spent some time, like it was just in between, like when I was watching something or just doing other random stuff, I would just like search through a bunch of people and then look at their profiles. And if I felt like they were doing something that I wanted to do and they had like a similar experience than me, I would just straight up message them. And it's really kind of awkward when you think about like having to message this stranger. But I just thought to myself, like, I want to utilize them as another resource, right? Like they have a lot of insight into what they're doing, how they got there. And it's a good way for me to learn a little bit more. And also like a lot of these people want to have conversations, like they've been through the struggle and they want to let people know how to make it easier. So I just picked, like, I think it was from, as an example, from the Global Affairs one, I picked like 5 to 6 people. And I just straight up messaged them like, hey, my name is Hadil. Like, I'm currently in my last semester of my undergrad. I'm interested in this. And based on looking at your profile, I see that you're working as this. And I was just wondering if I could gain some insights and knowledge into what you currently do and how you got there. And then, so that was basically like my script. And then I just attached if you have, I know you're busy, but if you have like 15 to 20 minutes of your time, like that would be greatly appreciated. And I sent that out to 6 people. And then I thought to myself, okay, don't take anything personally. Like not everybody responds, like it's not a big deal. And out of those 6 people, just from the Global Affairs one lady responded, and she responded a week late too. So it just kind of shows you that the way I think about it when it comes to reaching out is that what is the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario is that they say no, right? And if they say no, they don't know me, they've never met me, they probably will never meet me. So it doesn't necessarily matter. Just focus on like the end goal of 1 out of those 6 people responding.
All right. So this is actually a clip that I've taken from a 10-minute video that we have interviewed Hadil in one of our videos earlier. So basically, you know, once you get the slides, you can click on this link if you want to view the full video. But I just love how uncanny, you know, Hadil, you know, it's just approach it. You know, like I love the fact that she said, you know what? What's the worst case scenario? They'll just ignore me. They don't know me, but hey, you know, but what she's implying is that if somebody respond to her, right? And I think that's probably one of many, many fears in terms of connecting with people, especially over on LinkedIn. You know, I don't know about you, but, you know, but I also experienced sort of that, hey, like, do they even care that I am just this one random student, one random stranger? Like, do they even have time for me? Do they care? You know, you know, and again, it's really interesting enough. It's really nice to hear a story like Hadil, because is that okay? It doesn't happen 5 out of 6 times, but it happened 1 out of 6 times, 1 out of 10 times that you reach out to someone. And so the idea is that you never know, but how do you do that in a more sort of like, where do you find people to connect on LinkedIn? So I want to show you a couple of things that you can try. The first thing is called the LinkedIn Alumni Finder. Like, again, I'll probably go through this in 2-3 minutes, but if you want to read more, there's this blog article that I included. But the idea is that I wanted to say that something that I'm about to show you is actually available, even if you are just starting your LinkedIn today. So when you go to LinkedIn, just quickly, you know, search, you know, SFU, Simon Fraser University. And in this sort of menu bar, you will see many sections, and the section that you wanted to check out is alumni, right? So let me just give a hypothetical example, right? Maybe you're in the School of Contemporary Arts, you're studying visual arts, and you're thinking about, like, I wonder what are the, you know, what are the options or what are some of the career paths that other grads, you know, that have, right? So what you can do is put in, you know, sort of keywords, visual arts, and then say, okay, how about students who might have graduated for about a decade and a little bit, right? And then you run the search. So, and I want to say that sometimes if it doesn't update, you know, like I noticed that it hasn't been working for me. So I just do a quick refresh as well, right? So, and then I lost my, okay, let's try that again, hit return. So visual arts. So then you started to see, and I do need to do a refresh again. Usually it's automatic, but just for the last 24 hours as I'm preparing for this, okay, much better. So when I put in visual arts, you know, I started to see, you know, some keywords in, you know, in some of these folks sort of profile, right? So let's see. Just gonna click this random one, Ginger, because this is a really cool name. So Ginger, you know, you get a chance to see, okay, this person, you know, not visual arts, but a FCAT grad. Oh, sorry, actually worked for FCAT, actually. Sorry, my bad. So, okay, maybe that's why this person comes up because she worked there, you know, she worked there before. Let me see. Let's see. Maybe let's pick Norman. I think Norman graduated in 2014. It's also a FCAT grad. So this gives you a chance to see, okay, this person, you know, graduated, you know, back in 2014, and it gives you some insight of what is this person's career path, right? And again, you will see a variety of different career paths in different people. So just looking at, you know, again, I know that for some folks, you might be thinking, hey, this is borderline a little creepy, like I'm just looking up people, you know, sort of, reading through their, you know, but I think this is sort of the nature of LinkedIn, is that it is publicly available. But the idea is that, you know, you can get this chance to see what are the sort of different roles that they've taken, and different roles that are, you know, are possible, right? So a lot of times when we even do research on, hey, what can I do with a degree? And sometimes I use this tool to discover all the different cool things that, you know, graduates from different programs within FCAT ended up doing right now. And again, these are all living human being, meaning that their career journey is still continuing as we speak. So that's why I think it's really cool to check out. And maybe, just maybe, there is one or two people that you came across as like, wow, like this, what this person is doing is exactly what I wanted to do. And, you know, and maybe this is a person that you want to reach out, right? So this is sort of like, you know, the alumni tool in a nutshell. So, you know, we're racing through time here. Keep in mind a couple of things, right? When you reach out is that, you know, you might want to connect with them on LinkedIn, you know, before you ask them for an information interview, but you can also interact with them. Like, you know, if they have a post or if they have something that posted on their LinkedIn, you can comment on it, you can like it, you can say a few things, right? Maybe this person, you know, that sort of get that on the radar, get your name on their radar. And it's also a good way to look at sort of complimenting this person, right? Like, I really love your post, or I really love your thought, or I really, you know, really pleasantly see to, you know, the work that you're doing, you know. And one thing you can always do is, the reason why I wanted to sort of show you the alumni tool is what I call sort of play this alumni card, right? You know, again, folks that, you know, you'll be surprised. There are, you know, I think there's still a lot of nice people out there that, hey, if you say, I'm from SFU, you're from SFU, can I ask you a few questions, right? I think that alumni card is also quite good to play. A couple of things I want to highlight too, right? When it comes to sort of connecting with people and learn more about the work that they do, it's not about asking them for a job. You know, it's not asking them to be a mentor, you know, for the next, you know, 15 years, right? It's more about, you know, being concise. Like, I think the way I want to frame it is, you know, make your ask so simple that they almost cannot say no, right? You know, this is almost like, hey, you know, if I say, like, if I wanted to send a message to, you know, to Anastasia, like, instead of asking her, hey, can you spend like 5 hours with me to tell me everything about your career, right? Or I can say, hey, do you have 15 to 20 minutes? I have about 3 questions. I really want to hear what it's like working for SFU, what is it like to be a co-op student at SFU? Like, I promise I'm only going to keep it to 15 minutes. Is it okay, right? So again, keeping the ask small enough that makes sure that, you know, because again, you know, we're all busy professionals. But I think keeping the conversation short, keeping the ask short, and with no strings attached as well, make it so much easier for folks to say yes. So, again, I know in the past students even ask us to say, can you give me a sample invite? Like, by no means these are perfect ones, but for folks who are like, okay, like I don't even know how to write this. This is intimidating. I just throw in some examples in there. You can check it out after the slide that I'll send you. Fast forward additional resources. I wasn't kidding that I have lots of information to include. Check out this LinkedIn Career Explorer. I don't have time to do a demo. This is another sort of like a function in beta. So check that out because it gives you a really good way of understanding what are some of the skills associated with different, paths. So I just want to quickly give you a slight sort of feature here. So do check it out if you have a little bit of time. Second one is online masterclass. So as an SFU student, we actually have an institutional license, for an online masterclass that normally will cost you quite a bit. It's actually done by the same two folks that written the book that I mentioned earlier. So if you want to learn a little bit more, you can sign up for free, using this link through the institution license. So you can read that in the slide once you get them. But hey, LinkedIn Learning, right? So I know that is kind of pun intended, like learning LinkedIn through LinkedIn Learning. But again, as an SFU student and alum, you have access to create a free account via the SFU library. And last night I checked, there are, it didn't show on this screen capture, but there are like hundreds of courses on LinkedIn, right? And again, don't get me wrong, these are not like hours and hours of courses. Even, one of the ones I like is LinkedIn Learning for students. This one is pretty cool, and it has like a whole bunch of small videos. So even if you're just like, okay, I'm just going to look at the topics, like this is the one that I want. These are like 3-minute, 5-minute videos. Check out LinkedIn Learning, a lot of resources. But I also wanted to say this, right? We talk about networking through LinkedIn, connecting and inviting with people, but we didn't even get a chance to talk about where do you find recruiter or people in the industry to talk to? So I want to highlight a couple of things. Number one is that this Career Ready Change Maker program. So basically is that we're offering this program, of course, free of charge to all students and alum. Is this program, including, there is a series of workshops, including this one, that if you take a few of these sort of workshops, along with the virtual fair that I'm going to talk a little bit about, you're going to receive a credit on your co-curricular record. And I want to highlight the fact that there's a West Coast virtual fair coming. I'm way ahead of myself. Is that like I've been sharing a lot of strategies, but where do you find connection? So basically, in about a month's time, there is this West Coast virtual fair that is co-organized by SFU, UVic, and also UBC. We had close to 200 different organizations and companies. So whether you're looking for work right now, or if you're contemplating sort of options about career, this is also a great way to practice your networking, right? So one, so the nugget of tips I want to share with you is when you do connect with recruiters, if you have a chance to talk to them through this West Coast virtual fair, do invite them on LinkedIn, right? So the fact that, once you make that connection, your name will come up more likely to come up in their searches if it's the area of work that that you're looking for and that they're, recruiting. So, oh my goodness. So I'm gonna, before I go back to answer more questions, I wanted to sort of, again, do a little bit of Slido again, and just to say, hey, I've presented a lot of information and there are lots of things that we're talking about, but I just want to see what is one thing you want to try in the near future. Again, we're all at different stages, so there's no sort of no judgment on what you say. But this sort of give us, collectively as a sense of like, what is one thing you wanted to try in the future? So while we're getting folks to write this, and and I just wanted to go back to the Q&A because I promised that there will be more Q&A. So let's see what are the stuff that so we'll go back and forth. We'll go back and forth in terms of in terms of that question that I'm asking you. So let me take a quick look here. Okay, oh, actually, I just realized I have answered most questions. Maybe with one more. Oh, actually, here. Okay, let's start with this one. I've read a few sources and they often say it's important to network with recruiters and hiring managers. How do you find them and how do you connect with them? Oh, I guess I just answered that question. Check out the virtual fair coming up in November. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. One of the things that frustrate me the most from LinkedIn is that the fields and profiles constantly change layout. Yeah, like I totally hear you, right? Like I would like how I start the workshop is that some of the things that I've learned over the years, I realized, well, they're not quite the same anymore. So I definitely share your frustration. And then the latest, so I think part of that is the picture that comes to my mind when it comes to LinkedIn, it might not even be directly answering your question. It's almost like growing a plant. Like, I don't even want to profess that I'm a good gardener or anything like that, but my wife loves that. So I always see her that it's one of those things where, it doesn't take her a long time, but it takes that sort of 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day, right? Water your plant, and every now and then, I see her just sort of, cutting out some of the, drier branches. So the picture that come to my mind is it needs sort of this constant care on an ongoing basis, even though it doesn't take you like hours and hours every week. So I don't know if this metaphor helped, but it's just going back to sort of keeping it up to date, checking it out every now and then, maybe once every week, once every few weeks, and sort of like, keeping it, organized and managed. Is there any method you recommend to keep the media you include updated? The media I added some months ago. Yeah, no, I think that's so true. So depending on what it is, right? I think it's depending on where you host those media, right? Let's say, for example, if it's an article that is published by, say, an organization or an institution, like it's sort of almost at their mercy. But if you're able to take a digital copy, right? Let's say, for example, if it's our article written about you, right? Maybe you do a screen cap, maybe you have a PDF, and you can put it in your own portfolio. I think regardless whether this is a LinkedIn question, it's also true to everything about your portfolio, right? If you can keep a digital copy of it, so even if the place that originally hosted it no longer have that content, you still have a copy of that. Do you have any recommendation? Let's see where we're at. So we're still doing pretty okay. All right, I think I've covered pretty much all of them. Anastasia, how are we doing on the Zoom chat? Do we still have folks sticking around? I know I'm very keenly aware that it's already 2:40.
Yeah, a couple of them just left because they have class and stuff.
Exactly, that's totally fine. And I just wanted to make sure that, let's see. I just want to see, yeah, okay, so just going back to this. So thank you for, for a few of you who've shared some media on my LinkedIn, finally set up my LinkedIn account and build it, attend the West Coast Virtual Fair. Yeah, like that's really, really amazing. Yeah, again, like I know that I've said it, multiple times throughout, is that, this whole LinkedIn thing is a process, also learning and overcoming sort of, or I guess, increasing that comfort level with connecting with someone also takes time. So wherever you are at right now at this moment, it is perfectly okay. Take your time. It all starts somewhere, right? So don't let anybody dare to challenge you, say, oh, how come you only have like 3 connections? And I'm like, hey, I'll have more as I go. You will only get more as you go. So, and besides, the whole point isn't about having 500 plus. It's about making quality connections, connecting with people who can, who are in the position to give you information about what you learn about the industry, what you want to learn about options, with what you want to do. So I just want to say that, yeah, it is okay. So, yeah, I just want to say at the very end, I just want to say that, we've been working with, I'm from Career and Volunteer Services, and we've been working with FCAT and fine folks like Anastasia to try to put up career workshops every now and then. But beyond that, you're also welcome to, check out our website, follow us on Instagram and sign up for our newsletter. I just realized that I forgot to include our newsletter there. So if you want to learn a little bit more about, stuff that are coming, especially with West Coast Virtual Fair and also that Changemaker Career Builder program, program, career ready changemaker program, you can also get updates on that. So bottom line is, as a university, we know that you think about your career development a lot, and and I know you think about that a lot, and we care about you, and we want to support you along the way. So stay in touch. And to wrap up, I just want to say thank you for all of you tuning in through Zoom, and and all of us who are here in Halpern, and my big partner Anastasia today for keeping an eye on Zoom. So all the best in this semester, and stay in touch, and I will see you on LinkedIn, I suppose, or in person. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Have a very good day.